Now, just when you thought Warframe had enough firepower, Uriel brings Brimstone. Look, that was super cheesy. I'm not gonna lie, okay? I have no defense. But the big picture is that Uriel is our new commander of minions. He's a weapons platform, he's a caster frame, he has an insanely fun amount of mobility, and he is a proper minion master with 3 demon buddies built or baked into his kit. And the whole frame is about working with those demons, feeding off what they do, and then dropping a gigantic field of hellfire and brimstone on anything that is still moving and cooking it alive. Look, he's not perfect, however his fort can take a while to charge, his minions have a cooldown in between casting their abilities or marking enemies, and he has a lot of visual clutter on screen, especially depending on your energy colour and those minions constantly zipping in front of your face. On top of this, if you're in a squad with other players who are nuking everything, then it heavily affects how well your Uriel is going to work, because minions have nothing to work off, and your Brimstone will then take even longer to charge. But personal opinion is that he is a really good Warframe, not broken, not busted, and not overtuned. His kit works really well in tandem with each of his abilities, and his passive buffs bouncing off one another, and I enjoy him as he is, which is why I decided not to subsume anything off him. I really enjoy his entire kit. Now, with all that out of the way, if you're wondering how you get your hands on Uriel, it is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is finish the Old Peace quest, and you'll get his main blueprint as that quest reward. His component blueprints, the Helminth chassis and so on, all drop from the new Descendia game mode. There is a pity system involved with this if your RNG hasn't been good enough, and Descendia also drops a new currency that can then be spent back at Rothe in the Cathedral, back in the Sanctum Anatomica, to buy his blueprints and also to buy all of those new arcanes, which you can get really fast. Uriel's farm right now and his weapon and those arcanes are probably the fastest farm in game, and if farming isn't on the menu for you due to work, due to study, due to real life commitments, then you could just grab him for platinum, but again, that's up to you and your disposable income. Uriel is a mix, like I said, of a caster, a weapons platform, and he is a 100% minion master. His passive is basically 3 minions, Kathan, Gulfagore and Vthalis. These are attached to his first 3 abilities, and like a lot of his power then comes from interacting with what those demons are doing in every given moment. Now, his first ability is called Infernalis, and it will surround Uriel in a fiery aura that cooks nearby enemies. Range mods are going to determine just how well or how far out this aura will go, and while it is active, if you dash mid-air, you will turn into his flight mode, allowing him to have one of the best mobility tools in game, while also passing through enemies and setting them on fire, like a big colourful hellbound meteor. Now, on top of this, his fiery aura, it also gives that to his 3 demon minions, so they also have it, and it also gives it to the living bombs that you cast with his 3rd ability when you rip their souls out and throw it at enemies. Now, tied to this, his first ability is his demon Kathan, the chain demon. When Kathan is within 6 meters of an enemy, it will link up to 5 enemies maximum within range of its cast and then slow them down, while also doing damage over time to those chained victims. The slow is capped at 95%, which needs 190 power strength, and any damage dealt to one of those chained enemies will then spread to the other chained enemies at 100% of the initial damage instance. His 2nd ability is called Remedium. This is his healing or his self-sustain ability. Basically, you will heal yourself, you will heal your minions, and you will also give yourself overshield, and you have an invulnerability window while casting it as well. So, simply cast Remedium, become invulnerable for the duration of that cast, heal yourself, heal your demons, cleanse status effects off yourself, give yourself overshield, and revive your minions. Now, your minions have a long respawn timer. Remedium is how you keep your full squad online and keep your kit functioning properly. If you subsume this ability off your Uriel, you will have to wait for the duration of the timer for them to be revived in order for your kit to start functioning correctly again. So I would advise not subsuming this one off. Remedium's demon is called Gulfagore, and he is basically the little face-hugging demon. Gulfagore will latch onto an enemy's head, will stun them, will also mark them, and when you kill a marked enemy, they will burst into a pile of health and energy orbs, while also leaving a fiery patch on the ground. Now, the number of orbs will scale with your power strength, so more power strength means more sustain, right? More health, more energy orbs, And if you have Equilibrium or a Violet Archon Shard on, then these marked targets are going to become those health and energy batteries that keep you alive and keep you going for longer. Now, his third ability is called Demonium. This is where you will rip a chunk of health from those 3 minions and send them out as orbs or bombs towards enemies. They will seek the enemies out. They will explode on impact with those enemies for heat damage, and then they will bounce between targets as well. Everything that these orbs hit will get a damage vulnerability debuff, meaning that they will take extra damage from all sources. If Infernalis is active, your first ability when you cast your third ability, Demonium, the orbs that you throw out will also apply heat procs because they will have the aura for that on them, stacking even more damage, which also gives them armor reduction as well. Now, the demon tied to Demonium is Vthalis. When enemies die, Vthalis will create a floating fiery rune above their corpses. If you or your teammates walk or fly through these runes, you will get a buff that increases your fire rate by 30% at base and adds 30% bonus heat damage at base to your guns. And power strength, of course, is going to scale just how effective these buffs are. Only 3 runes can exist at once, and they show up on your minimap, which is great because Uriel has so much visual clutter that you're going to need the minimap to see where they actually are. Now, his fourth and final ability is called Brimstone. When you cast it, Uriel will blanket a huge area in Hellfire and Brimstone that damages enemies every half second and applies heat procs through walls, through floors, and the longer an enemy stays in the flames, the more damage ramps up on that enemy. Each consecutive damage instance increases the heat damage by 100% up to a maximum of a 10 times multiplier, so it doesn't go any higher than 10. So anything that doesn't die instantly eventually gets cooked anyway. However, his fourth ability has got a charge up meter that you need to fill in order to cast his Brimstone, and filling this meter can take a while depending on enemy density, depending on if your squad is killing everything, and killing enemies chained by Gulfagore, picking up the runes, and hitting enemies with Demonium's souls that you throw out will charge up this meter quicker. So like I said at the start of the video, he is a very interactive Warframe. He is a very ability intensive Warframe, and you're going to need to keep interacting with everything that those 3 demons do in order to build up that meter or fill up that meter to cast his Brimstone, unless you decide to subsume off his Brimstone, which I've had a few people come into my stream telling me that that's what they had done. Again, entirely up to you. His gameplay loop is simple, but really satisfying. You can fly around with Infernalis if you have it, keep Remedium for sustain with heals over shield revives, spam Demonium to debuff enemies and I guess fuel that bar for his ultimate, chase Gulfagore's marks on top of enemies in order to get those health and energy orbs, and then grab Vthalis's runes for your weapon buffs. And once the meter is full, you can drop his Brimstone in an area and kill absolutely everything. I think my range is 265, which is feckin' huge. Now, while Brimstone is active, you can immediately start rebuilding the meter again, so the next cast is already on its way. Now, moment to moment, his gameplay is just really active, which makes him bloody fun. And one of the most fun frames that we have in our entire arsenal, and I did think that Noko was right up there at the top for just sheer fun values. But right now, Uriel, I think, is up there tied with Noko just for how much fun you can have with a frame. Now, in terms of how I went about building or modding my Uriel, first up, this is my beginner's build. Now, in terms of beginner builds, you basically are going to be looking for a mix of duration, range, and strength. Efficiency you don't really need because you are going to be showered with health orbs and energy orbs, and on top of that you're going to want a bit of survivability. Redirection, vitality are perfect for this. I wouldn't go with steel fiber simply because his armor values are quite low and steel fiber isn't going to give you the same benefit that maybe redirection will. In terms of the aura, you can use whichever aura you currently have. Since you're a new player, you're not going to have some of the best mods to give yourself, I guess, the best builds in the game, so just do it whatever you have here. Whether it is steel charge, dreamer's bond, energy siphon, whatever aura you have, just stick it on here until you get whatever you want for your build. Now, in terms of my Uriel build, this is pretty much how I have set him up. I've gone for growing power. You could use brief respite if you want to, but in all reality, his second ability already gives you that moment of invulnerability because you take no damage, and then you also heal and give yourself overshield. So using, I guess, rolling guard or brief respite in either of these feels like a little bit of a waste. Adaptation might even be a waste as well, and you could put maybe Augur Secrets in here. I've gone for prime sure-footed to resist a chance to get knocked on my ass. Archon Stretch is going to give me energy resupply because my Deriga Sentinel is going to be zapping enemies, which kicks in the passive for this. Prime Continuity for duration. Blind Rage for ability strength, which leaves me with negative efficiency, which isn't really an issue. I don't have a flow mod on this, however I do have a blue Archon Shard, which is giving me extra energy and allowing me to freely cast my abilities. I've also gone for Augur Reach for more range, Overextended for more range. I've gone for Umbral Intensify, which gives me ability strength. However, Archon Intensify at the minute doesn't work, but Pablo has tweeted out saying they are currently going to get it to work, which will give you that bonus 30% ability strength whenever you heal with your second ability. So you could switch Archon Intensify in there if you wanted to. And Archon Vitality, of course, is giving you double heat procs whenever you, I guess, put a heat proc on an enemy. In terms of arcanes, it's always going to be personal preference to the user themselves. Arcane Concentration is one of the new ones, which gives you 60% ability duration whenever you cast an ability, which is a lot with this frame. He is quite intensive in relation to casting your abilities, which almost negates, I guess, Arcane Camisado, because you're going to be casting that freely, that you might not see the 60%. So you could switch this out for Molt Augmented if you wanted to. You could switch this out for Arcane Hotshot. You could switch it out for maybe one of the other new ones like Arcane Expertise, which gives you bonus shields if you're getting, I guess, killed too easily. But like I said, his second ability will replenish your health and shields and give you overshield. So this is all you really need in terms of survivability. Once you have energy to cast this, it's going to keep you alive. So if you wanted to, you could drop out Adaptation and put in Primed Flow here if you're not comfortable having a low energy pool. I know a lot of players like having really high energy pools just to keep themselves going. However, his second ability, his Gulfagore, his demon, will give you plenty of health and energy orbs. So if you have got one Violet Archon Shard on your Uriel, that is enough for energy sustain. But this is pretty much my build, right? So 170% duration, 265 range, 198 strength. However, this is going to increase my strength, and so will this, or so will Molt Augmented, whichever arcane you've got in here. Then on top of that, I'm going to have like a full minute on his Infernalis. I've got a 40-meter range on his Brimstone. This as well is giving me over 100% damage vulnerability on enemies whenever those demon souls that I rip out and throw at enemies explode. So overall, it's a really nice build and I like it as it is. I'm not going to subsume anything off him or put anything onto him because I like his kit the way it is and I find him really fucking fun. And at the end of the day, the devil's in the details. That was really fucking cheesy, wasn't it? Now, it is also worth mentioning that Uriel is also especially important to Warframe and any veterans out there, and definitely to the Warframe developers, because he is another piece of Mynkis' legacy to Warframe. The last frame that he designed, and I think DE absolutely nailed it, and it is a credit to their design team that they have right now to put out a frame that is, I guess, this much fun to play with. Easily the best introduction to a Warframe in a cutscene or quest moment in the entire game. If you've ran the quest and you've had that introduction to Uriel in the quest, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Mynkis, of course, was Warframe's first art director and one of the main people responsible for Warframe's art direction from 2013 onwards, with the weird and beautiful designs over the years, who sadly he passed away from cancer in 2024, and this is, I guess, maybe the last piece of his legacy to be added into the game. But overall, that's my thoughts on Uriel. That's my build for Uriel, and that's how Uriel works and how you get your hands on him. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of him once you build him, how you've gone about building him. Maybe you've actually subsumed something off and decided to go with a different build. Let me know by all means. Like I said, I've decided not to because I think his kit is just really good as it is. Either way, have a great day, have a great week or weekend whenever you're watching this video, and as always, thanks for watching.